Thanks very much. And obviously, an incredibly important question, especially with the focus on the genocide against the Uyghurs, which, as you've noted, brings us into that very challenging realm of how to address China's abysmal human rights record. And I think it's interesting that the main point of the question is to really grapple with this debate that's often out there as to whether soft diplomacy or hard-edged sanctioning are the more effective strategies in these kinds of situations. So I'll certainly address it with China and the Uyghur genocide in particular in mind, but also maybe from a bit of a wider perspective as well, because this question comes up all the time in human rights advocacy. Is it better to go soft or hard, be conciliatory or condemnatory, criticize publicly, or raise issues privately? And I think there's assumptions in the background of that. Isn't going soft really an excuse or a pretext for essentially really doing nothing, especially if there are competing interests around trade and investment? Isn't it all about giving a bit of an appearance of something with nothing really going on? On the other hand, some say isn't going hard often really a lot of bluster, standing on a soapbox, but at the end of the day, making no real difference and perhaps aggravating the country in question such that channels for diplomacy get shut down. Well, the answer is, and I'll come to China in particular in a minute, it can never be one or the other. And we really do great disservice to the serious human rights concerns at stake, including in this instance, concerns of the very highest order, genocide, when we frame human rights advocacy and strategies about being a choice between the two. We certainly often hear from Canadian governments that soft approaches, being more conciliatory, quiet discussions, diplomatic channels is the way to go. And yes, I think it's fair to have the Liberal government in the spotlight right now with respect to China. And I've got a lot of critique as to how they've handled that file. I think I would broaden that out to say what we generally see is that whoever's in government is the one who has this inclination to go soft, and opposition parties tend to be the one pressing otherwise. We saw exactly the same challenges around China, especially in the latter part of the Harper government. So there's a kind of a bit of a trend there. And we can all understand why that is, because when they go soft, it's a lot easier for them. There's less conflict, there's less controversy, there's less scrutiny of their efforts, there's less media attention, fewer questions. Some commentators, we hear the opposite, that diplomacy is meaningless and nothing but smoke and mirrors, and that the Canadian government should just go the route of break off diplomatic relations, issue public statements, and denounce and condemn. Now, I don't want to suggest that Canada never pursues tougher measures. They certainly do. There's a growing number of individuals and countries that have been sanctioned under our so-called Magnitsky Act, the Justice for Victims of Corrupt Officials Act, and the Special Economic Measures Act. And that includes 4 individuals and 1 state entity now sanctioned with respect to the Uyghur crisis. The Canadian government, of course, doesn't use the language of genocide. But there is generally a sense, even in those instances, that politics take precedence over clear human rights principles. When you look at the countries that are sanctioned, it's without exception generally countries with which Canada has strained relations already. So there's very little cost to pointing the finger. Countries with whom Canada has closer ties, where there's strong and competing economic interests, more likely to escape censure. Look here in the Americas. There's a number of Venezuelan officials associated with the Maduro government and Nicaraguan officials associated with the Ortega government who have very rightly been sanctioned. However, individuals in Honduras, in Guatemala, in Colombia, just to name 3 of the most obvious, responsible for very serious and similar human rights violations, but where there's political alignment with Canada, not so much. So let's consider what Canada's approach in particular should be to addressing the Uyghur genocide and China's deeply concerning human rights record more widely. The first point I would highlight is it is beyond frustrating that for many, many years, as China's human rights record has deteriorated precipitously, the calls that have been made by civil society groups, and I know because for most of those 20 years, I was chairing a civil society coalition focused on human rights in China. And our coalition's calls for Canada to develop a meaningful, concrete, comprehensive, whole of government human rights policy for our relationship with China that applies to our trade dealings, that applies to our immigration stream, that applies to cultural exchanges, that applies to every single aspect of our very comprehensive and wide-ranging relationship with China, were never taken up by either party, no matter who was in power. And instead, human rights considerations were generally always relegated to the desk of one officer in our embassy in Beijing, one or two officers at international affairs back here in Ottawa, and that overarching need to have something concrete with benchmarks and clear strategies never developed. That's a big failure. The second, we have tried, but really haven't invested what needs to be invested into really crafting a multilateral approach to China. China's been very good at keeping countries divided. They deal with countries one-on-one, and countries have fallen for that, largely because they want to keep their own trade relationship strong. So they have agreed to have quiet behind the doors discussions about human rights rather than pursue things openly and multilaterally. That has to change. There has to be a concerted effort, and not just bringing together the usual suspects. You can usually get the United States, the EU, Australia, sometimes Japan to sign on to a growing number of public declarations that states are making about human rights concerns in China. We've got to move beyond that. There really needs to be a full-out effort to craft a strong multilateral initiative. Number three, we do need to start calling it what it is. And with respect to the Uyghur situation, at a minimum, we are talking about extensive, unrelenting crimes against humanity. I and many others, organizations, researchers, and legal academics much more expert than I, have all concluded that it does amount to genocide. Canada shies away from using either of those terms whenever we call out what's happening on the ground in China, and that has to change. Number four, absolutely, this reluctance to be hard-edged with China has to give way. We do need more sanctions and penalties against individuals who are responsible for this, but more trade sanctions and really digging into supply chains, boycotts on goods coming out of forced labor situations in the Uyghur regions, for instance. All of that has to absolutely be on the table. And this, I go back to the multilateral piece as well, not just on our own, but very much in concert with other countries, but not waiting for other countries to do it first and then we'll follow. We've got to be leader in this space. And then the last thing there's more I could say, but the last thing I really want to say is here the need for consistency. We have seen unprecedented levels of Canadian diplomacy on behalf of the two Michaels. And that is so crucial. Obviously, those cases are very concerning, but there are so many other completely overlooked and forgotten prisoners. Monia has reminded us of the case of Hussein Chilil. I've been involved in the advocacy on his case since 2006, and it is painful to see the degree to which that advocacy on behalf of the Canadian government has not remotely ever reached the same level of what we're seeing on behalf of the two Michaels. Sun Qian, a Falun Gong practitioner, she's been in prison since 2017. We hardly ever hear a word from the Canadian government about her case. And there's 4 Canadians on death row in China, 4 Canadians who are facing the possibility of execution. So consistency has to be the hallmark of our approach to China. I'll wrap it up there.